Good morning, everybody. We will give folks a second here to get logged into the webinar, and we will begin shortly. Again, good morning, everybody. We'll give everybody a couple of seconds here to get logged in, and we will begin shortly. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We want to welcome you all this morning to the Miscellaneous Information Technology, Hardware, Peripherals, Components, and Related Services Request for Offer number DIR-CPO-TMP-558, presented Monday, November 15th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Before we get started, let's cover a couple of housekeeping items. And if you go to the next slide, let's do a quick hand check. If you can hear us pretty loud and clear this morning, please go ahead and raise your hand so we can do a sound check. Excellent, excellent. See a lot of hands going up. Thank you for that. You may change your audio by switching between computer audio and phone call. We want to remind everybody that all attendees are muted today. So please open the question and answer panel in your bar and enter your questions into the Q&A panel. That's where we will track them, and that's where we will answer them. Please do not use the chat, as the questions can sometimes get lost in there. So we appreciate you using the Q&A box to enter your questions. And a reminder, you will have a copy of this handout, and it will be made available to you. Okay, next slide. A little bit of introduction of speakers and staff today. Joining us are Stephanie Harrison, the Manager of Statewide Procurements here at DIR. Also Lynn Hottie, Director of Hub Outreach and Training. Teresa Williamson, a Hub Coordinator at DIR. Also Colleen Berkeley is our Director of Procurement Services. Also joining us today is Elizabeth Cooper, Director of Technology Planning, Policy and Governance at DIR. And driving the webinar today, and your main presenter is Monica Presson, a procurement lead here at DIR. So with that, we want to welcome you once again, and reminder to put your questions in the Q&A box, and I will turn it over to Monica.
Thank you, Tom. So going over today's agenda, we will be going over the overview, contents, and the scope of the request for offer. Also the evaluation criteria, the terms of the contract, the schedule, the subcontracting plan, the pricing sheet, and the electronic and information resources, which is the EIR. General information, BidStat vendor information system portal, the mandatory submissions. Then we will follow up for a break. Then we will enter into questions and answers and a closing. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this request for offer is to solicit responses from potential vendors to provide miscellaneous information technology hardware, peripherals, components, and related services to the state of Texas, acting by and through the Department of Information and Resources. This is the rebid of solicitation DIR-CPO-TMP-558, which was titled Miscellaneous Information Technology Hardware, Peripherals, Components, and Related Services. DRR may make multiple awards against this RFO. Next slide, please. Historical sales. So this is a snap overview of what the historical sales have looked like the last 3 fiscal years, FY 18, 19, and 20. On the left-hand side, you will see a breakdown of mandated and non-mandated customers, as well as what those sales look like. At the bottom portion, you'll see a breakdown of what the totals have been for each individual fiscal year. Next slide, please. So the RFO is consistent of attachment 1 through 6 and exhibits A through I. Attachment 1 is the sample contract for products and services. So this is really a snapshot of what a potential contract will look like if you're awarded against this request for offer. Attachment 2 is the standard terms and conditions for the products and services. Attachment 3 is a historically underutilized businesses subcontracting form. Attachment 4 is the service agreement template. Attachment 5 is the master lease agreement. Attachment 6 is the master operating lease agreement, followed by Exhibit A, the respondent information, Exhibit B, the history and experience, Exhibit C, the marketing and customer support plan, Exhibit D, the reference form, Exhibit E, the release of liability for references, Exhibit F, the itemized pricing sheet. Next slide, please. Exhibit G, the EDGAR certification form, which stands for Education Department of General Administrative Regulations. Exhibit H, the voluntary product accessibility template, or known as VPAT for commercial off-the-shelf products. Exhibit I, the ICT accessibility policy assessment, known as the PDAA. Next slide, please. Going through the request for offer. Next slide, please. So this is what we will be going through internally as far as milestones and or attachments. So it will comprise of the vendor information system, bid stamp portal, the scope, the pricing, the submission requirements, evaluation, negotiation, and award, including exhibits A, again, which is the respondent information, exhibit B, the history and experience, exhibit C, the marketing and customer support plan, exhibit D, vendor references. Next slide, please. Exhibit E, the release of liability for references, exhibit F, the itemized pricing sheet, exhibit G, the EDGAR certification form, exhibit H, the VPAT for commercial off-the-shelf, and exhibit I, the vendor accessibility policy assessment, PDAA. Next slide, please. So the term of any contract awarded against this request for offer shall be for a initial period of 2 years, commencing on the last date of approval by DIR and vendor. The contract will renew automatically with 1 optional 2-year renewals and 1 optional 1-year renewal under the same terms and conditions, unless either party provides notice to the other vendor within 60 days in advance of the renewal date, stating that the party wishes to discuss modification of terms or not to renew. Next slide, please. So you're looking at the anticipated schedule of events. It's identified in section 3.3.1 in the request for offer. The next action item will be November 18th at 5 p.m., which is the estimated deadline for submitting your questions. And then following up the deadline for the submission of the request for offers, which at this time is identified as December 1st at 2 p.m. Next slide, please. Going over what the evaluation criteria looks like. So in section 4.1 of the request for offer identifies the evaluation of responses. It includes incomplete response packages that will be rejected, the financial review and the subcontracting plan review, which is a pass or fail basis. Failure to provide a DUNS number may result in your response being disqualified, and only responses that receive a passing grade will proceed to the next evaluation phase. So what does the evaluation criteria look like? That is identified in section 4.2 of the request for offer. So 40% of the weighted score is going to be identified in the products and services pricing. 30% of the weighted score will be in the contract marketing and support plan. And 30% will be in the history and experience. Next slide, please. So covering the exhibits. Exhibit A is a respondent information. This form must be filled out in its entirety and signed by an officer and agent empowered to contractually bind the respondent. Complete cancel contract references, if applicable. Exhibit B is a respondent history and experience. Respondent must provide a detailed response to each question detailing the respondent's history and experience in providing the products and services proposed. Exhibit C is a contract marketing and customer support plan. The respondent must provide a plan that describes the ability and the strategy for promoting and supporting the contract if they're awarded. Next slide, please. Exhibit D, vendor references. The respondent must send Exhibit D reference form to a minimum of 3 companies or governmental entities. References must respond to DIR on the form provided by the due date in order to be considered for evaluation. Respondents may not submit the reference form directly to DIR. There is an email link on Exhibit D that will, where these forms will actually be forwarded to. Exhibit E, the respondent release of liability and references. The form is required for all canceled contracts and must be provided to DIR with respondent's proposal. Exhibit F, the itemized pricing sheet. Responses must submit specific pricing for products and services requested. Respondents must respond as instructed in Exhibit F, which is the itemized pricing spreadsheet. Next slide, please. Exhibit G is identified as the EDGAR certification form. Respondents must provide the certification form as requested in section 352 of the request for offer identified as federal requirements. Exhibit H, the VPAT. Respondents must provide a completed voluntary product accessibility template for all commercial off-the-shelf products. And Exhibit I, PDAA, the respondents must complete the policy-driven adoption for accessibility or vendor self-assessment. Next slide, please. So going over an overview of the scope. The scope is identified in section 2 of the request for offer. And it states that DIR intends to contract with qualified vendors to provide miscellaneous information technology, hardware peripherals, components, and related services to create a contract vehicle that satisfies statewide procurement requirements for miscellaneous information technology, hardware peripherals, components, and related services, and improves the efficiency of the procurement process by shortening the time required to procure the specified products and services. Potential vendors may propose any hardware peripherals, components, and related services offered by the vendor and categorized as in scope as identified in section 2.1.2. DIR reserves the right to determine in its discretion if products and services offered as part of the vendor's proposal fall within the category of the miscellaneous information technology, hardware peripherals, components, and related services. The solicitation is for hardware products categories and related services to augment the enhancement of capabilities of the host product or equipment in order to provide other IT products and services that may not fall under a specific DIR contract. Next slide, please. So the following hardware IT products categories, including and related accessories, software, and/or supplies applicable to each product category listed below, illustrate the type of IT hardware product that will be considered within this request for offer. Computer monitors, power protection, computer accessories, uninterrupted power supplies, projectors, digital document cameras and camcorders, batteries, tablets, computer appliances. Next slide, please. Sync clients and other hardware components and peripherals. So for the purpose of this request for offer, the hardware components and peripherals shall meet the following categories. There is a hardware component category and a hardware peripheral category. The hardware component is identified as an information technology device that is typically an internal attachment, which has an essential function and purpose to assist in the design of the computer or other type of IT hardware equipment. Some examples of such devices are memory, hard drives, and video cards. Hardware peripherals is identified as an information technology device that is typically an external attachment, which is not part of the essential makeup or design of the computer or other type of IT equipment, but assists in the main IT device that is functioning. Examples of such devices are keyboards, mouse, and speakers. Next slide, please. Additionally, product categories for other hardware components and peripherals shall include the following types. PC components, which are processors, motherboards, memory, internal hard drives, cooling fan, chases for NIC cards, monitors, and portable monitors. Input devices, which may consist of keyboards, mice, barcode scanners, and touchpads. Bluetooth, such as readers and devices. Multimedia, such as CD, DVD drivers, and recordable devices, microphones, headsets, sound cards, graphic cards, and speakers. Data storage, such as tape drivers, RAID storage system, USB flash drives, external hard drives, and media. Memory, such as PCs, servers, printers, and network devices. Modem, such as I/O controllers, communication ports, internal and external. Power, such as laptop batteries, uninterrupted power supplies, backup and power cords, lithium batteries, drug protection type cases, such as laptops, notebook cases, tablet cases, and camera cases. Next slide, please. Adapters, converters, touch surface compatible projection screens, portable mini printer and multifunction devices, digital handheld cameras and related accessories and bundles, such as digital GoPro Sports type cameras and accessories, and digital video cameras, docking and charging stations, biometric technology, such as fingerprint readers, facial recognition, and iris readers, assistive adaptive technology products and related software, such as Bluetooth readers for the vision impaired, wireless and or wired braille display readers, IT-based communication aids, augmented communication products, communication systems for the speech impaired, display scanning type, and speech synthesizers. This also includes drone accessories and replacement parts, not the actual drones themselves, FRD products, and related services. Next slide, please. Computer tablet, laptop accessories, such as bags, cases, privacy screens, mouse, keyboards, wrist rests, non-integrated monitor stands, and other office type product items that may only be sold as part of the package bundle that includes an IT product that meets the following criteria. The IT product must be within the scope of the request for offer. The product must be included under a designated automated information system commodity code. The product must be an item that would be used with the office product type accessories. So these office products, type accessories, items may not be sold under this request for offer as a standalone item unless a customer requests an upgrade or a replacement to a previously purchased product meeting the criteria. The following miscellaneous service categories, including related accessory software and/or supplies applicable to each service category listed, that will be considered under this request for offer: IT equipment maintenance and management services, digital data destruction services, automated redaction de-identification services, shredding services, computer component and peripherals. Next slide, please. Biometric authentication system software services, including maintenance and repair, support services, computer, including computer warranties, and equipment leasing services. So the following products, categories, and non-information technology products are considered out of scope for this RFO, which is the furniture and office supplies, as identified as desks, chairs, computer laptop bags, unless it's sold with a computer or laptop, printer, toner, and ink, paper, photo paper, unless integrated with an RFID or other type of technology, writing instruments. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the IT and services that are out of scope and are covered under alternative IDIR solicitation or contracts include desktop desktops, desktop workstations, software, servers, storage area networks, routers and switches, printers, copiers and multifunction devices, video conferencing systems, video surveillance systems, technology-based interpretation services, cabling services, break-fix services, application development services. Next slide, please. Managed print services, digital imaging services, IT emergency preparedness and disaster recovery products and services, data storage products and services, software as a service, geographic information system hardware, software, and services, and information technology-based land surveying hardware, software, and related services. So the following publishers and manufacturers, which would be within scope of this request for offer, are actually excluded due to direct contracts that we have with those manufacturers. These manufacturers include Apple, Cisco, next slide please, Dell, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, Lenovo, Novell, Oracle, and Panasonic. So related services are a value add service that the successful correspondent may perform as related to the products proposed. The related services include product installation, maintenance and support, managed services, and product training. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Lynn to cover the hub subcontracting portion of this presentation.
Thanks, Monica. Next slide. So this RFO includes a hub subcontracting plan that all respondents are required to complete, sign, and upload to the portal with your response. You can find the current copy of the current hub subcontracting plan at the link that we have provided to you. We don't own this form. This is the comptroller's form. So we provide you that link so you have the most current copy of the HSP so you can complete that, sign and date that, and then upload that with your response. Next slide. So again, all respondents are required to submit an HSP. This is a pass-fail item. Failure to submit a completed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. There are 3 ways that you can complete the Hub subcontracting plan, by either self-performing, meeting that Hub goal, and completing method A, or not meeting the Hub goal and subcontracting out and completing method B. So we're going to go over those. Next slide. So if you are going to be meeting the Hub goal of 21.1% for this RFO, and you're going to be subcontracting out, you will complete method A. So that means you're going to complete sections 1, 2, 4, and then method A, attachment A. And you're going to provide the list of subcontractors that you intend on using. And you're going to provide their VID numbers or EINs, the approximate dollar amount and percentages for the RFO. Now, these percentages and dollar amounts are inclusive of all sales for the life of this contract. So it's going to be based on your sales. So it's your best guesstimate for that dollar amount at this point. So don't overthink that, but don't leave it blank. We cannot accept TBDs. We can't accept zeros. We can't accept blanks. So make sure you complete that portion. And also remember to complete and include all VID numbers for each vendor that you have included in that section A2 of that method A, attachment A, for all subcontractors that you're proposing. Next slide. So if you're going to be subcontracting, but not meeting that goal of 21.1%, you're going to complete method B, attachment B. So that means you're going to go back and complete sections 1, section 2, section 4, and then method B, attachment B. And method B, attachment B is a little more involved because you are required to contact a minimum of 3 hub vendors and 2 minority trade organizations, and you have to allow them 7 working days to respond back to you prior to the due date of this RFO. If you don't give them 7 working days to respond, your HSP will not pass. You have to let them know what type of subcontractors you're looking for, and you have to give them a notice. There is a document at the end of the HSP that can assist you with this notification, but make sure you complete all sections of method B, attachment B. And again, when you go in and identify those subcontractors you're going to use, make sure you include their names, their VID numbers, approximate dollar amounts, and percentages. Again, we cannot accept blanks. We cannot accept TBDs. So make sure you have included that information. Next slide. If you're not going to be subcontracting and you're going to be self-performing, you will complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. In section 3, you will provide a justification on how you will be self-fulfilling, self-performing this contract. And you will not reference your response anywhere because we do not have access to those. We only have access to the Hub subcontracting plan when we are reviewing these. So you're going to tell us in a brief statement how you're going to self-perform with your assets, your own employees, your own resources, this contract. Do not make any promises. Do not say if we are awarded this contract, we will subcontract. Do not give us your opinion about the Hub program. This section 3 is simply and only for your response on how you are going to self-perform for this contract. Next slide. So something that we offer is a review of your Hub subcontracting plan prior to the due date of the RFOs. We do this for all of them. Take us up on that. We will review your hub subcontracting plan and let you know, yes, you have completed it correctly, or no, you have not. This saves you headache and time, and it also saves us headaches and time in reviewing these once the RFOs have closed. So we ask that you give us at least 7 working days to review that so that we can review it and let you know if you need to make any corrections. You probably should give us a couple of more days just in case. So if you need to go out and resolicit, you've given yourself 7 working days and have built in time to do so. But if you email the DIR Hub email that we have included there, we will be more than happy to review that hub subcontracting plan for you and give you a verification of, yes, you've completed it correctly, or no, you need to correct these items. And we will respond to you. Now, keep in mind, we have numerous RFOs that are going on, that are closing and that are due. We have other HSPs that are being submitted for other contracts. So make sure you give us enough time to review that and respond to you. Make sure you've built in enough time. So if you need to make any corrections, you can. And we're happy to do that review for you to save yourself the headache of failing and being rejected and your response being rejected. Next slide. And I'll turn it back over to Monica.
Thank you, Lynn. So we are going to be going over Exhibit F, which is the itemized pricing sheet. Next slide, please. So the respondents must submit pricing on the DIR's automated pricing form in the Bitstamp BIS portal. Failure to respond as instructed may result in the respondents offering disqualification from further evaluation. The respondents must submit the discounts of the offerings on the automated pricing form in the Bitstamp BIS portal. So the products shall be categorized by brand, product category, product family, or whatever group of the respondent's choice. Only products shall be included in this automated pricing form in the Bitstamp BIS. So no services will be included. Respondent must offer only 1 discount for each brand, product family, or whatever group that the respondent chooses to do so. The discount shall be applied to all products within that brand, product family, or whatever group that the respondent chooses. This product discount ranges and/or averages will not be accepted. The price to the DR customer shall include all shipping and handling fees. Next slide, please. So these are the Bitstamp fields that are included in the portal: product category, product subcategory, brand name, product description, service description, and manufacturer. So for the product category, we'll enter a family or a product category that is proposed. For example, if we're proposing a monitor, we will add monitor to this category. For the subcategory, if you are proposing an LED, then you would add LED to this category. You will also enter the brand that you are proposing. The brand names must be submitted and spelled out as in the general marketplace. For example, out in the general marketplace, Hoovercam is identified as 1 word, so therefore do not include it as 2. So please make sure that the spellings are coming in as they're identified in the general marketplace. You will enter the full description of the product. If you're providing a detailed item, then you must enter a manufacturer part number or a SKU number. And if it doesn't need to be identified or it does not relate to it, then you must enter NA or not. And then check if the vendor is a manufacturer. Next slide, please. It'll also cover MSRP and discounts off MSRP or list price. So the manufacturer suggested retail price, or the MSRP will be on there as well. The discount off MSRP and the list price, you will provide discounts for the detailed items, provide an average discount for the brand. So for the purpose of this RFO, the following definitions will apply. It is list price and MSRP. The list price is identified, the price at which the product is usually sold to the public, and from which the trade discount is computed by a prime vendor that is an authorized reseller or manufacturer. MSRP is identified as the price of the product which the manufacturer recommends that the reseller sell the product. The intention of the MSRP is to help standardize pricing among authorized resellers. Respondents must upload Exhibit F, which is the itemized pricing sheet, and the bid stamp BIS. Exhibit F contains 5 different tabs: instructions, brand average sample, brand product detail, service discounts, and volume discounts. Next slide, please. You will enter prices for each item that your company would like to offer to DR customers within the applicable tabs. And then for certain products, for example, commercial office shelves, and those with interfaces as well as VPAT documents must also be included in the respondent's proposal. Next slide, please. So in tab 2, the elements required for brand average sample include the category, subcategory, brand, description, detailed service description, service category, manufacturer reseller, MSRP for list price, and discount being offered. Next slide, please. Tab 3, the elements required for this tab include category, subcategory, brand, product description, product part number, MSRP or list price, discount being offered to DR customers, and the DR customer price. So this Excel spreadsheet already has formulas embedded, and the formula you see below has a DR customer price equals the MSRP times the discount percentage and the administrative fee. Next slide, please. Tab 4 elements will consist of service name, service description, manufacturer part number, MSRP, discount being offered to DR customers, and DR customer prices. Next slide, please. And then tab 5 will consist of type of volume, product category, and discount being offered to DR customers. Next slide, please. Going into attachments 1 and 2. Next slide, please. So attachment 1, again, is a sample contract for products and services. So this is what the contract will look like if your company is successful and is awarded a contract off this request for offer. Attachment 2 is the terms and conditions of the products and services. Therefore, no exceptions may be taken to certain terms as identified in the standard terms and conditions. And respondents' response may be disqualified if their exceptions are excessive or if they list exceptions that are non-negotiable terms. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Elizabeth Cooper for the accessibility portion.
Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
I'm Elizabeth Cooper. I'm the Director of Technology Planning, Policy, and Governance, and I'm going to be covering Exhibits H and I today. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. The Texas Government Code requires state agencies and publicly funded institutions of higher education to comply with EIR accessibility standards. And the purpose is for the general public and state employees to have the access to the same government information and services regardless of ability or disability. The requirements are defined further in the Texas Administrative Code, and they conform to the World Wide Web Consortium 2.0 AA technical standards. So DIR customers that are state agencies or higher ed are going to be looking for accessible products when they buy off of DIR contracts, and they will be asking you for the applicable accessibility documentation. So DIR asks you for this in response to procurement solicitations. Next slide, please. So there are two accessibility types of documentation for this RFO. One is using a voluntary product accessibility template for anything that is a commercial off-the-shelf product or has a user interface. Those templates are used to create something called an accessibility conformance report. I'll tell you a little bit about those more in a minute. And then the second documentation, and this applies to everybody who's submitting a response, is the policy-driven adoption of accessibility self-assessment. And this basically helps organizations assess their maturity in the area of accessibility. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit more about the VPAT or ACR. This is required for commercial off-the-shelf products or anything that has a user interface. It must be created using the VPAT template 2.3. And if you have an ACR that was created using a VPAT on an older form, that's okay, as long as there hasn't been an update or a new release since January of 2019. So, make sure that you're using the right form. The preferable form is 2.3. We highly recommend you look at this sooner rather than later. And if you're a reseller, you're going to get those VPATs from manufacturers. They may be on the manufacturer's website, but you need to request them if you don't find them, and they're applicable. So VPATs may or may not be applicable to what you are responding to in this RFO. And so regardless, if you believe that it is not applicable, please download the form, and on the first page, once you get past the instructions, you can list what your product is, and there's a place for notes that you can put the VPAT is not applicable, and here's why. Next slide, please. Now, the documentation that is required for every single response to this solicitation is the policy-driven adoption for accessibility self-assessment. All this is a questionnaire to help us better understand where you are on accessibility. It helps you do a self-assessment of what kind of policies you have in place, if you are integrating accessibility into key business processes. And so if you complete it and you have a lower score because you're immature, or the types of products or services that you provide don't have that user interface, or not a commercial off-the-shelf product, just explain that in this form. It's okay to have a lower score. Just explain why you don't have full accessibility policies in place. Next slide, please. We have resources available on our website, and the applicable forms were included as part of the response documentation for this solicitation. But you can feel free to, next slide, please. Reach out to me with any questions, but do please include Monica on any emails that you send me, so she will be in the loop. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I will now turn it over to Stephanie Harrison to cover the general information and bid submittal.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, everyone. So you've heard all this great information about what needs to go into your proposal. So now we're going to talk about how you submit your proposal. Next slide, please. General information regarding any questions that you're going to submit through the webinar or through the question and answer portal. Please include the RFO page number and section number when submitting your questions. That way we can address it appropriately. Any webinar participants may submit the questions electronically at any time during the webinar using the Q&A tab. Questions today are unofficial until they're posted on the ESBD in the form of an addendum, and please check the ESBD Electronic State Business Daily often for updates. All questions regarding this RFO must be submitted in writing through the bid stamp vendor information system portal, which we'll go over in a minute, by November 18th by 5 p.m. Central Time. Next slide, please. So general information disqualification of offers. You've heard some of this already before in the presentation, but I just want to reiterate. Failure to sign the respondent information form, your Exhibit A, is a disqualification. That signature is what binds your agency to be able to submit a proposal. So it is required that that form is signed and uploaded into the VIS system for inclusion as part of your supporting documentation. Failure to complete the financial information requested, the DUNS number. Failure to complete the hub subcontracting plan. Lynn went over that in detail. That form must also be signed and be submitted as a part of your response. Failure to submit on or before the due date and time. Please watch the Electronic State Business Daily for any potential changes in the due date or time. That will come out with an addendum if there's any changes in that. It is very important, because this is an electronic submission, that you allow for error or technical difficulties or website delays or internet connectivity issues when submitting your response. I cannot reiterate this enough. It is the day and time, so all time will be Central Time when responses are due, and the day. Vendors that wait until the last minute to submit a response in recent times have not been able to complete uploading the documents for the response. And at the time deadline, that ability to upload responses will turn off. So make sure that you plan in advance, get your response together, get it submitted before the due date and time. This last button here, our last tab here, is very important. Any contact with DIR employees regarding this RFO, other than any designated contacts, as outlined in this presentation and in the RFO, can cause you to disqualify yourself from the submission process for the competitive RFO. Delivery of offers. Any vendor responding to this RFO must submit the response through the bid stamp VIS portal. Next slide, please. Again, reiterating that respondents and all respondent representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with any employees or representatives of DIR other than designated contacts. Failure to observe this restriction may result in the disqualification of any related response. Next slide, please. Your points of contact for this RFO include Monica Presson. Any issues with the vendor information system portal may be directed to myself, Stephanie Harrison, and any questions relating to the hub subcontracting plan may be directed to Lynn Hottie at the dir.hub@dir.texas.gov mailbox. Next slide, please. So how do you submit your response? We have a bid stamp vendor information system portal, which is an electronic submission process. Before you can access the Bitstamp VIS portal, if you have not ever submitted a response, you've never followed a response, you must create an account. You will be required to provide the login credentials if you currently have an account. If you have forgotten those credentials, you may contact DIR if you have an existing account. The account approval process is a manual process, so it's not automatic. It does not come back to you directly. This is to weed out like bots or duplicates. So there is a person that is reviewing each account request on this end. You must allow for 2 business days for your account to be set up. Again, you cannot wait until the last minute to submit a response or to go in and create your account, as you will not be successful in meeting the time and date deadline for your proposal. If you do not have credentials, you must request one. You click on "Are you a vendor or need to request an account?" button that is located on the login page. If you have a disability or seek an accommodation under the ADA Act, or respond to the solicitation, you may contact the DIR point of contact in section 3.1, which is Monica, and allow at least 5 business days for a response to change that submission requirement. Next slide, please. So how do you navigate to get to the VendorVIS system? So on the DIR website page, you're going to go to the Selling Through DIR tab. Next slide, please. Once there, you will find the solicitation, a schedule of solicitation opportunities. Next slide. And then here is the button for the Bitstamp online solicitation portal and how to request credentials for Bitstamp access. This presentation is only going to tell you how to load your documents. There is an actual separate presentation on the DIR YouTube channel that walks you through how to create your account and how to add users and how to make sure that you know how the account works. Please watch that presentation as it will help you get started. We also have a VIS training guide, which is on the same page where you set up your account or log in. That will give you some additional tips and hints for submitting your response. Next slide, please. So once your account is enabled, so remember this is going to be 24 to 48 hours business days after you request an account, you will get a login email that says that your account is ready. If you already have an account, you've already submitted before, you will just be able to go and log in here. Once your account is enabled, you'll be able to submit and manage RFO responses from the Bitstamp VIS portal. You will log in using your username and password. Next slide, please. It'll take you to the main page for the VIS portal. The top 3 tiles, My Account, Open Solicitations, and My Response, are the Vendor Information Systems portal. The bottom 3 tiles will take you back out to the DIR website. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So once you click on Open Solicitations, it'll take you to a list of everything that is currently open and available to receive a response. You will look for DIR-CPO-TMP-558, which is the miscellaneous IT RFO. You will click on that response number. Next slide, please. And that'll take you to the landing page for that particular RFO. On that page, you will see the date of the posting, the date and time that questions are due through the VIS portal, the date and time that responses are due. Remember, all times are in Central Time. So if you're in a different time zone, please account for that. The vendor conference date, this is the vendor conference date for today. The anticipated RFO answers to questions, and then the anticipated start date of the evaluation. The RFO questions tab will log each question that your agency submits, and will keep a running list of those questions that are submitted before the question deadline. It will not show you all the questions that everybody submits, just the ones that are submitted through your agency. Next slide, please. The respond to solicitation or view response button will enable you to view a response if you've already started. If you have not started the response, it will say respond to solicitation. Once you've started that response, that button changes to view response, and it allows you to pick up your progress on an existing RFO response. The ask a question button allows you to submit a question directly to the DIR point of contact. All questions will be answered in the form of an addendum. We will not answer one-off questions to individual requesters during this time. That is to keep everything fair, so everybody's receiving the same information at the same time. The subscribe to solicitation allows you to receive addendum notifications on that solicitation. Basically, you're getting the updates whenever we push them through the VIS system and the ESBD. This is only if you select the subscribe to solicitation and you've enabled your contact to receive notifications. Otherwise, please just check the ESBD for regular updates. View solicitation documents allows you to navigate directly to the ESBD, the Electronic State Business Daily, posting for the solicitation and view the solicitations documents. You will be able to download all of the documents from the Electronic State Business Daily. Please pay attention to any addendums that may have updated information. Next slide, please. This slide here is kind of the cheat sheet for this, how to respond to solicitation. A lot of vendors will print this out and kind of keep it as a reference. So your information here is you'll be able to submit your response. You'll be able to ask a question. You'll be able to create your pricing form. That Add Hub subcontracting form is no longer available on this window. You will need to use the link that's provided for the Hub subcontracting plan, complete that form, and Lynn instructed earlier, sign and upload the form. We will not have the automated Hub subcontracting form in the VIS portal. On the RFO response documents section towards the middle, that section lists the name of documents that you've loaded. It does not show anything other than the name that you've created for that document. So if you've created a document and you've misnamed it, it's going to show up as whatever name that is and not necessarily the document name itself. So make sure that you've entitled that what you intend to title it before you load it, because it can become confusing to vendors that may look like you have a document loaded in there that you actually do not. This just keeps a running list of the documents for you. This is not submitting your response. It's just loading the documents. The vendor reference tab allows you to submit the vendor reference form through the VIS to anybody whose email address you put down there. This is optional. You do not have to use it. You may still download the vendor reference form that's a part of the ESBD posting and email that to your references to make sure they get it. There's no tracking on here. There's no way to tell if your reference actually submitted the form through VIS. This is just a courtesy way to send it quickly to anybody that you may want to complete a reference form for you. The submit button on DIR on the VIS page submits your entire response. So once your response is submitted, currently in order to make changes, you must withdraw the response and then upload a new document and then resubmit it. That's the only way that we get your full and completed response. So be sure that you're ready to submit whenever you hit the submit button. It will time and date stamp that. Once the time and date has expired, so at 2:01 on the date responses are due, that button will become inactive. We get a lot of vendors that say that they have that something's wrong with their response when they're trying to submit at 2 or 1, it's because you can no longer submit because the time has expired. Again, the submit button will no longer be active after the time and date have expired for the submission. So make sure you get all of your documents loaded and you hit submit before that time and date submission. Otherwise, we don't get your response and it just sits out on the interweb somewhere with nobody able to view it. Next slide, please. Your mandatory submission contents include, please pay attention, respondent must provide the items listed below or the response will be rejected. Your Exhibit A is your respondent information form that must be signed. Exhibit A, canceled contracts, attachment 1. If you do not have any canceled contracts, please go ahead and submit that form, but mark it as NA. So we know that you did not leave the form off and you do have canceled contracts. We have no way to know if it's applicable to you or not unless you fill that out. So fill it out if it's applicable. If it's not applicable, you will still fill it out as NA and attach it. Your Exhibit B, respondent history and experience. That is an evaluation criteria. Your Exhibit C, your contract marketing and customer support plan. That is also evaluated. B and C are scored. If you do not submit those, you're going to score way lower and may not meet the competitive break for your response. So those have to be submitted in their entirety. Please do not assume that we know how your business works. Also, please do not assume that the person reading Exhibit B is also reading Exhibit C. Make each individual document a standalone document so that the evaluators have all of the information they need in that one document without referencing another document. Your Exhibit D, vendor references, those come in directly from the references themselves, not through the vendor. Exhibit E is your respondent release of liability for the reference. That does need to be signed and submitted. Your Exhibit F, the itemized price sheet. This is also scored. So if you are not submitting, if you do not submit your Exhibit F, you're going to receive a very low score and we will not be able to move forward because we don't have anything to evaluate you on pricing wise. The Exhibit G is your EDGAR certification form and your Exhibit F is your VPAT form. All of these documents must be uploaded into the Vendor Information System portal. Next slide, please. In addition to the previous list, you will also include your Exhibit I, your Vendor Accessibility Policy Assessment, PDAA form, your Attachment 3, which is your Hub Subcontracting Plan. Again, that document must be signed and uploaded, and it must be complete in the manner that was described earlier in this presentation. Please allow for ample time to complete and submit that Hub Subcontracting Plan in its entirety. Manufacturer letters of authorization for all brands proposed. If you are not the manufacturer, you do have to get a letter from the manufacturer saying that you are an authorized reseller and that you can sell those products on their behalf. Those must be included, otherwise we cannot award those products on your contract should you score high enough to move forward with an award for those particular products. Your software license agreements and or service agreements, if these are applicable, please include them with your response. Any exceptions requested must be included on the Exhibit A in order to be considered as part of any of the negotiation process. If those exceptions are not included, they will not be considered at a later date. There is also an affirmation statement that the respondent takes no exception. So if you take no exceptions, please complete that section. And then any addendum to the RFO will include a addendum note sheet saying that you have received notification of that addendum. That also must be signed and included with your response. Any updated documents included in that addendum that may replace previous documents are also a part of your response and expected to be completed and turned in. Next slide, please. At this time, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and so we'll resume at 12:15. Please have your questions submitted through the Q&A portal. Any questions that come in through the Q&A portal will be included in the addendum. Questions answered today are unofficial until they're posted on the ESPD. And then you may still submit additional questions through the Bitstamp portal up until the time and the date of the questions outlined in the RFO schedule.
Okay, it is 12:15, so welcome back, everybody, and let's go ahead with the questions that you have posed. Reminder, if you are going to pose a question, please reference the RFO selection section number and the page number with your submitted question. Questions answered today are unofficial until they are posted on the ESPD, and you may submit additional questions through the Bidstamp Vendor Information Services portal. So first question, if we don't have any canceled contracts, is Exhibit E required?
So Exhibit E is still required even if your company does not have any canceled contracts. Exhibit E will be a mandated form. If your company does not hold any canceled contracts, please mark it as an A or not applicable.
Okay, next question. For every brand we enter, do we need to get a letter of authorization from them, or would we be able to give a list of authorized items from a distributor?
So your company will need to get a letter of authorization from the manufacturer, correct?
Okay, next question. I am Hub certified. Do I need to submit the HSP/Hub subcontracting plan?
So the answer to that is going to be yes. The Hub subcontracting plan is mandated for you to submit in as part of the required document. If the Hub team has any additional answer to that.
No, Monica, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Will this be awarded to multiple vendors or a single vendor?
So DR's intent is to do multiple awards against this one request for offer.
Okay, next question. Are we allowed to provide an electronic signature on the Hub subcontracting form?
I will defer that over to the Hub section.
This is Teresa. Yes, electronic signature will be accepted for this procurement.
Okay, next question. Do we need to upload each manufacturer's price list for this response?
So in the pricing Excel spreadsheet, that's where you will enter each of the manufacturer's price lists. So all of that will be identified in the Excel spreadsheet. You will only need to submit in one Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, next question. Is a transmittal letter and executive summary required for this bid?
You can submit in a submittal letter or transmittal letter or executive summary if you'd like. It is not or pass or fail. So it's really up to your company if you'd like to do so. Just make sure that all the exhibits and all the forms that were identified that must be uploaded into the Bidstamp portal are uploaded.
Okay, next question. Is it possible to have the due date of the RFO response extended?
So DRR will take that into consideration, and that will actually be answered through an addendum.
Okay, next question. Let's see. Q&A section 3.3.3 on page 20. When do you anticipate posting answers to questions on the ESPD site?
So the anticipated schedule right now, as advertised, is the 18th of this week.
Okay, next question. Due date question 3.3.1, page 19. Due to the fact that the holidays are coming and you push out both the webinar and the questions due date, can vendors also get at least a 2-week extension on the due date?
So DRR will take that into consideration, and the answer will be provided in an addendum.
Okay, next question. Is wireless networking equipment considered part of the scope of this RFO?
I will defer that over to Stephanie.
So anything that falls under the Texan requirements are not within the scope of this RFO. As far as networking equipment, certain things may fall within the scope, like chargers, certain routers, things like that, but not anything that is also within the scope of the Texan RFO that you have to have a service in order to utilize it. And we can get a more definitive answer in the written Q&A document.
Okay, next question. VPAT question 2.9.1A, page 15. As standalone software is not in scope of this RFO, are VPATs required? If VPATs are required for peripheral hardware for no user interface, how is that determined by the vendor if we are responding as a reseller?
Hi, this is Elizabeth Cooper. And so VPATs may or may not be required depending on what you are offering. If it is something that you do not believe a VPAT is applicable, you should state so in the form. And also, if you are a reseller, you should obtain a VPAT from the manufacturer. Sometimes you can find them on their website, but if not, you should reach out to the manufacturer and request one.
Okay, next question. What happens if you don't receive 3 references?
So because of the requirements identified, a minimum of 3 references, I will defer that question to the Q&A addendum.
Okay, next question. LOA question, section 3.5.1A, page 22. Most of the products that we intend to propose under the scope of this RFO are only available through our distribution channels. Will DIR accept letters of authorization from our distribution partners showing that we are authorized to sell the proposed products?
So the letter of authorization must come directly from the manufacturer.
Okay, products out of scope, for example, laptop bags 2.1.3A, page 10. Based on the scope of products in this RFO and the manufacturers listed as out of scope, computers and laptops cannot be sold under a contract awarded based on responses to this RFO. Does that mean laptop bags are strictly out of scope even when they are listed as in scope?
So on the laptop bags, they need to be just a generic laptop bag that you can buy at like Office Depot or in the supply section, office supplies. Those are out of scope, but there's a lot of bags that are integrated now with USB ports. Those are allowed within the scope, or if they're sold as a bundle with the package. But just a general basic laptop bag is outside of the scope of this RFO because that's considered an office supply, and those are under different contracts with the comptroller's office.
Okay, next question. Exhibit F, itemized price sheet. Will DIR allow vendors to structure their response with a discount off of a verifiable advertised list price instead of a discount off of MSRP?
No, a variable advertised list price will not be acceptable, only the discount off MSRP.
Okay, again, is there any chance the solicitation will be extended to give us a full 2 weeks to adjust and respond once the Q&As have been posted?
So DIR will take that into consideration and the answer will be posted through an addendum.
Okay, next question. Do we need to upload both the pricing Excel sheet and complete pricing online within the bid stamp portal?
Monica, let me jump in here real quick. On the Excel spreadsheet, that is all of your pricing, your services, your products, all of that is on the pricing. The bid stamp portal requires the certain fields to be included. So your spreadsheet actually has more information than what's included in Bidstamp. So you're required to submit it in both places. The part of the scoring comes from the Bidstamp portal, and then the additional details are in your Excel spreadsheet. So we do require you to have both. And I also wanted to clarify that it can be the off list or MSRP on your discount, but you need to be able to show where the list price was determined from. It can't just be an arbitrary list price. There does have to be some sort of source for list.
Okay, next question. Page 11, section 2.2, need more clarification. Thanks.
That's not very clear to me. So if they could just repost their question, that would be great.
Okay. Yes, please repost a question which you need more clarification on, maybe in that section. Next question. As a manufacturer outside the United States, what is the appropriate manner in which to respond to certification of compliance with Buy American provisions? My same question would reference Texas Government Code 2155.44 regarding buy taxes.
I will defer this question to the addendum.
Again, just wanted to note, I asked about the extension because of the Thanksgiving holiday as well, which again will be considered per Monica's responses. Question, page 1, class and commodity code and section 2.1.3. Are printers and scanners considered out of scope of this RFO?
I don't believe they're going to be considered out of scope, but again, I'll defer that over to the addendum Q&A.
Okay, next question. Can you elaborate on how Exhibit E is relevant to canceled contracts? Attachment 1 is about canceled contracts, and Exhibit E is a release of liability for references.
I'll defer that over to Stephanie.
Let's see, that may be mislabeled, so we will have to provide any clarification in the Q&A document.
Okay. Next question. Is there any additional benefit for certified minority woman-owned businesses that are not Hub certified?
I'll defer that to our Hub section.
Please reread the question.
Is there any additional benefit for certified minority woman-owned business that are not Hub certified?
The Hub certification is a statewide Hub certification. Is there any, it's not graded, it's not weighted in your response. It's a pass or fail document, your HSP is. So if you're a woman-owned company, whether you're Hub certified or not, that's not taken into consideration with your response.
Okay, next question. Carrying cases / laptop bags are only eligible on this contract if sold within a laptop or Chromebook, ? Not as a single standalone item.
That is correct.
Okay, next question. Are interactive panels under the scope of this RFO? If so, servicing for said iterative panels wouldn't be considered under this RFO. Is that correct?
I'm not clear on this question, but I will definitely defer it over to the addendum Q&A.
Okay, next question. Does the RFO include disk and flash drives?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next question. Page 11, section 2.2. Certain brands are excluded, but at the same time, the document states that this does not preclude the vendor from proposing the utilization of these manufacturers as part of a total solution. However, if utilized as part of a total solution, RFO-DIR-CPO-TMP-558 Miscellaneous Information Technology, Hardware, Peripherals, Components, and Related, the same product brands may not be offered outside of that package unless customer requests upgrade or replacement to previously purchased solution.
So I think this is a question that you were asking clarification on earlier. So we have certain branded contracts direct with the manufacturer, and those manufacturers have agreements with DIR to not have their products sold outside unless they're authorized under reseller agreements on their own contract for the most part. We will take into consideration where like a component or a piece of that is a part of another solution. So if your company uses some sort of a branded product that is a part of your solution and it's made into another component and sold as that, we will consider that. And so that's what we're talking about in this particular section. They won't be able to sell standalone from that restricted list, but we will take into consideration, and may not necessarily be awarded, but we will take into consideration where you have utilized the component under the permission of the manufacturer and have done an additional change to that component and kind of made it your own and rebranded that for this particular RFO.
Okay, next question. Does the RFO include RFID tags and barcode print consumables?
It does
Yes.
include the RFID tags, yes.
Okay, next question. If a brand isn't included in our submittal, can we still use it under this contract at a later date?
No, the brands that are submitted in your response is going to be what is considered at a later date.
The exception, and that's going to be emerging technology clause. So if it did not exist at the time that the RFO response was due, we may consider it at a for an addendum to the contract. But if it's in existence already and you did not propose it, it cannot be considered later.
Okay, and at this time, now those are all the questions that I see in the Q&A panel.
Okay, as a reminder, questions answered today are unofficial until posted under the electronic state business daily in the form of an addendum. Any changes for additional information regarding this request for offer will be posted as an addendum to the current solicitation under requisition DIR-CPO-TMP-558 on the electronic state business daily. And it is the responsibility of each vendor to monitor the ESBD website for addendas. Next slide, please. The anticipated schedule of events. Questions are due November the 18th at 5 p.m. And currently the deadline for submitting responses to this request for offer is December 1st at 2 p.m. There were several questions that were submitted to look at extending that date. So please make sure that you are reading the addendums and the questions and answers as answers will be provided. And if it is extended, we will also modify the RFO to make sure that those dates and those times are changed as needed. Next slide, please. All questions and inquiries must come to me, Monica Preston, Procurement Lead of this request for offer. Next slide, please.
Monica, we do have one more question that has come through. Should we take some time to answer that? Question, could I get more clarification on signing of the addenda and submitting them? Are the addendum with questions also inclusive?
So the addendums that you're going to see posted on the electronic state witness daily, at the very bottom, we'll have a signature line, and those have to be signed and submitted as part of your response.
Okay, another question. For every brand we enter, do we need to get a letter of authorization from them, or would be able to give a list of authorized users from distributors? We may have had that question.
So the letter of authorization must come from the manufacturer. Any other questions, Tom?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. I want to thank you for taking time to dialing in to this optional pre-proposal presentation. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.